The left has been up in arms ever since Donald Trump announced that the Smithsonian museums and institutes need to focus more on positivity and American exceptionalism in order to bring the country together. But of course, the Democrats, ever since this happened, have been saying that's an attempt to erase American history. And of course, this led to Jillian Michaels appearing on CNN and actually saying that it seems like there's a lot of bias against white people in these displays, okay? And this, of course, has led to a complete meltdown of the left. So much so that Abby Phillip is having another entire segment on CNN covering this topic. And we're going to see today, of course, is going to be Scott Jennings being very even keel about the whole thing. So before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can get the algorithms. Here we go.
Quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, but also a quest for democracy and the way, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is a story not just of a model, where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just refuses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He says, "We have to have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums." Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of to try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has, you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional, and in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past, and to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it, and Bachi may want to comment on this as well, but I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving commodity.
The question I ask when I hear you say that is, why, I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. You know, I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody is proposing that we ignore that it happened.
I don't think that's accurate. I think that the problem is that there are people And Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are, 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices owned slaves. The people who are on our money every single day owned slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress owned slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, owned slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear owned slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that.
So let's go ahead and contrast these two responses. You have one from Scott Jennings and you have one from Bakari Sellers. Scott Jennings is saying, yes, slavery was bad. We acknowledge that. But we actually got over it. In other words, we fought a war and it ended. But Bakari Sellers comes out and says that, hey, there's all these people in American history who actually owned slaves, which of course is true. But remember the context of the history of the entire world. Slavery has been around since civilization started, all right? But this nation started to eradicate it 1 year after its founding, all right? You have in 1777, the first states coming out and saying, hey, we're not going to have slavery allowed anymore. And the British, of course, outlawed slavery in the 1830s, but America didn't do it for the entire nation until the 1860s because guess what? We had to have a civil war first. And all of these facts should be mentioned in the context of slavery, right? So when you have a display that's going to focus just on one side, yes, America bad, history bad, slavery bad, you have to, of course, incorporate the good because otherwise you're going to be dividing this nation. And by the way, when Donald Trump is talking about getting rid of the wokeness from all the displays, he's not necessarily talking about the displays on slavery. Instead, he could be focusing on these other ones like here from Business Insider. The National Museum of African American History and Culture had displays like this where they focused on whiteness. And they said certain attributes were considered to be part of whiteness. Attributes like working hard, respecting authority, objective and rational linear thinking. All right. White dominant culture or whiteness contains all of that stuff. That sounds pretty bad. All right. When you actually have all of these good things attributed only to white people, yeah, that's a pretty woke idea. All right. So this is the type of stuff in my mind that Donald Trump is saying, yeah, let's get rid of this. But also the other stuff, the displays on slavery, make sure it shows the end result, because otherwise we're just going to be dividing American citizens and giving essentially fodder for the next up and coming generation to not like America, to hate this country, to believe it's an awful place that still discriminates when, of course, that is not the fact whatsoever. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Do you like t-shirts? Of course you do. And now you can support the channel by buying an Angry Teacher t-shirt designed by me, Angry Teacher. So if you like America, if you like freedom, if you like liberty, then go ahead and click the link in the description where all designs, of course, are 100% mother approved. So enjoy yourself and find something you like today.